Oh shit, that's not right. Oh man. Oof. Hello everybody. Oh man, what a strange, weird, meh game. Derby could still be playing now, and I don't think they'd score a goal. Millwall did two things really well offensively all game, and they scored from one of them. The corner, which Ted and Mengi doesn't attack the ball, and Hutchinson gets a free header at it. Honestly, I think that's the only thing Tedden did wrong all game. But when it's the critical error that costs you a goal, and when it's and when you're part of a team that doesn't score many goals, that's always going to get highlighted more. And then they, in the second half, Millwall had an attack down the left when Graham Shinney gets dispossessed, and they go down the left with Mason Bennett, and it gets put into Thompson, and he cuts it back to Wallace instead of taking the shot himself. Well, that was a strange decision. He had a sight at goal there and could have made it 2-0. They were the only two things that Millwall did attacking in an attacking sense, really. And they scored from one of them. And look, that's not a criticism of Millwall. The game is the game. Millwall scored one goal and Derby scored no goals. The game's the game. Derby were just toothless, really, really poor. And Rooney was really angry in his presser afterwards. He was really, really angry in his presser. He criticised all the forwards. Said the movement wasn't good enough from any of them. He said, mentioned that Camille has to try and get a run across his man, and he mentioned that there were balls in the box today, good balls in the box, and it was just so strange. It reminded me a lot of this same fixture last year, where Derby had loads of the ball, but just didn't really do much with it. Between sort of their own penalty area and Millwall's penalty area, they were great. They'd knock passes round and spray passes about, and stitch these little moves together. When the moment of truth came, they made one mistake at that end, and they weren't sharp enough at the other end. That's where your money is. That's where staying in the division is. That's where your points are. You've got to be good in both penalty boxes, and Derby weren't really admitted to that. They weren't good enough. He was very angry. The criticism of Louis Sibley. I put the quote up because he still said those words. He still said he wasn't good enough. And even in context, still said he wasn't good enough. He threw him a little bone by saying, I know he's exciting and I know he can score goals and create goals. Sandwiched that with criticisms, both sides of it, by saying he wasn't good enough. He needs to show him he needs to play. And then after he'd praised him, then criticised him again and said, but he needs to show me more in those moments, even though it was only small moments. He needs to show me more. I mean, that's a criticism. He's tried to give him a little bit of something, but that's still a criticism of Louis Sibley. And I felt bad for him. I felt bad for him. Louis got 10 minutes tops, and didn't. It wasn't. It's hardly a game where he's going to be able to settle in quickly and do something. But all right. The idea wasn't to get him to settle into the game. It was to bring a little spark of magic. And look, Louis hasn't been playing particularly well lately. But I thought the way that Rooney went at him was a little bit rougher than I maybe expected. But maybe he's after a reaction. He wants to see if he sinks or if he swims. And look, his methods are his methods, and he's still learning on the job. Maybe Rooney in 5 years' time won't say that. I won't say that. But right now, that's where we are. And look, while he singled Louis out in that instance, he did overall criticise every forward. All the forwards. He singled them out because they were poor. The 3-4-3 that he went with, I found was okay, but when you do that, you rely an awful lot on your fullbacks getting the width. And to be fair, I thought in the first half, Craig Forsyth has two chances. He should bury at least one of them. The header's at the back post. I thought Nathan Byrne. Nathan Byrne was excellent again today. Really, really good. And out there, he was very vocal out there as well. What has been so pleasing about Nathan is when he first came to Derby, he was basically much more of a defensive right back. he was much more a defensive-minded right back. His final product and his attacking qualities weren't great. They were okay, but he was much more of an accomplished defender than he was an attacker. As the season's gone on, Nathan's got really, really good at getting crosses into the box, quality crosses into the box, and he did that again today. But no movement, no gambling, no going across the front post, no going across your marker, no arriving late in the box, nothing like that. There was nothing like that, and that was, that's a shame, because that's been the first time in probably this stretch now that is, 5 games without a win, 4 games without a goal. That's probably been the first time where consistently Derby have thrown in pretty good quality crosses. Didn't remember much from the other side on the left. But yeah, I thought down the right, Derby had a lot of joy. Marlon Romeo on the other side really struggled to deal with Forsyth in the first half, but they seemed to get to grips with it a little better in the second half. George Evans and Graham Shinney saw a lot of each other in this game. There were a couple questionable calls there that the referee made, but the big one is that Derby didn't feel that the free kick that led to the corner that led to the goal was a free kick. Graham Shinney was not very happy with that decision about the free kick, citing that Kamil Jóźwiak had not got a similar decision up the other end. I can definitely see his point. 100%. It can't really excuse what Derby did or didn't do, though, because Millwall were there. They were there. They were right there. They were right there for the taking, for a point or all 3. They were there, and Derby didn't do enough. This is not a new problem. Derby have not replaced the creativity of Mason Mount since he left. They just haven't, and they've not replaced the sort of spectacular moments that Harry Wilson brought them in Frank's season. Now, Tom Lawrence provided some of those last season under Philip. 10 goals, his best league goal return for Tom, and he did really have moments of wonder. But it's not happened for him this season through form and injuries. But they've not replaced those two. Deep, without Bielik, if you're asking, and Graham Shinney can play. We know he can play a little bit, but if you're asking him to be a pure deep creator, that's not what he's going to do. Jason Knight is not going to do that either. The midfield is more functional than creative, and at the 10, they don't really have a natural 10. I know Louis Sibley, that's his preferred spot. But for me, he's more of an attacking midfielder. Pick the ball up on the half-turn, sprint, and go. A little bit like Dwayne Holmes, where I didn't see Dwayne Holmes as a natural 10. I saw him more as an attacking midfielder, where you pick the ball up, sprint, and run at you, rather than you pick up very clever pockets of space and look to slide balls down the side and drift one over the top, or see a run out the corner of his eye. I don't see them as that kind of player. Derby have missed those two pieces. Obviously, Rooney was that guy for a long time. For 15 games, 20 games, when Rooney was probably at the top of his Derby time in the park. That was him. Now they don't have that at deep or at the 10. They don't really have that. So therefore, they rely out wide. And when you get positions out wide, you need bodies in the box. You need movement in the box. And there was one instance in the second half where a ball gets crossed in. I think there's only 2 players in the box, and Rooney is livid. He's shouting at the players, "Get in the box!" He's really at the top of his lungs, not happy with it. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. If you want encouragement, Derby dominated the game, but it doesn't say a lot considering Millwall seemingly were pretty happy for Derby to dominate the game and got what they wanted. This will be a big test against Brentford. Derby were excellent in how they played Brentford last time. Obviously, that was one of Rooney's first games where they kind of soaked up the pressure, let Brentford have the ball, rode their luck a little bit, but got a very, very credible 0-0 draw. Derby were well worth that 0-0 draw on that day. This Brentford team are a good team. Don't get me wrong; they're a very good team. They are where they are because they're a very good team. But they have peaks and troughs, and you only have to see what Coventry did to them a few weeks ago. When they kind of struggled against Blackburn last night, and obviously that goal was a penalty. They're not functioning how they were last season. Ivan Toney, you man mark Ivan Toney everywhere he goes. Everywhere he goes, to the bathroom, to his own dressing room, when he drops deep, when he's in the box, you man mark Ivan Toney all across the park. Because around him, I think they're a bit more inconsistent in terms of what the service they provide around him. So if you can erase him, which Derby largely did in the first game, there is hope there. So yeah, that's that. Let's get to thoughts on Sibley criticism, but none for you, Shriak, Waghorn, or any other senior player who struggled. Lewis, yeah. So contextually, it's important that it was a weird one. So a journalist sort of said, "Oh, Louis came close to hitting the bar," and that's when Rooney went in. That's when Rooney gave a direct answer about Louis Sibley. But he grouped all the forwards together and basically said none of them were good enough, and he was right; they weren't. So yeah, I think it's different when he singled out and named Sibley and said Sibley has to be better. He has to be better, but then sort of grouped all his forwards in at once, because without naming them, I guess it kind of feels like they're they're being protected. Would I have done that? No. I'd have, but that's just me. I probably wouldn't have done that. Certainly not after only giving him a few minutes. His critique is kind of correct, but the manner of the critique, I think, was what has been a bit like, oh boy, because Sibley hasn't been playing well recently, and he has had to deal with getting 20 minutes off the bench here, 10 there, 5 here, and it's difficult to settle into a rhythm when that's that's what's happening. So yeah, I feel like we were by far the better team, but they put up a wall and we didn't convert our chances. Derby were by far the more dominant team with the ball. They made a lot more things happen with the ball, but they weren't good. They made one mistake in their own penalty area, and they weren't good in the other penalty area, and that's why they are where they are in the table. The irony is Derby could have really used a performance like this where they dominate the ball again, because recently it's not been like that, where they absolutely dominate their opposition and rotate the ball really well and things like that. But then if it comes to the final third and your crosses are poor, your movements poor, it sucks. Evans never showed that level of aggression for us. Definitely should have been sent off. Do you know what, Ben? I actually didn't even see Evans get his first yellow, to be honest with you. And then the foul that the advantage gets played on, and then I think it is on Shinnie where the advantage gets played on, and then he doesn't get booked. I honestly didn't think that was a second yellow, but then he had totted up quite a few, hadn't he? So yeah, maybe a case for him to get a second yellow there. But yeah, he was really pressing up, and everywhere Shinnie went, he was going. He was aggressive in that midfield for Millwall today. Watson has to start the next game. Sam, I think it's a difficult one, because obviously Brentford are a very good team. Do you want to throw him in against a good team? But then Rooney says he always picks on merit and competition. That's why Roos stayed in the starting 11 today. I definitely see a world where Louis Watson gets a start in that team somewhere. Maybe over Waghorn, I'm not sure, and move Jason to the left. Maybe I don't know, because again we've entered territory where we're not quite sure how they're lining up. Remember at the start of his tenure, where we kind of knew when the team was dropped, it's this formation. Yep, he's come in for him, he's dropped out for him, and so on. Whereas this time, it's a bit like chop here, change there, do this, do that, and Rooney said right now that is what they kind of have to do. It's game to game. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Watson get a start. Do we have enough to win one game for the rest of season's ends? I'm not so sure we are dog egg. To be honest, Peter, look, I've said all along, I think Derby will be, once sort of they did climb that table and get their head above the trap door, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll stumble arse backwards to fine, but I think they'll be fine. That's not an encouraging thing. Believe me, that ain't encouraging to stumble your way to safety. But I think they'll be fine. The fixture list. This game was a big disappointment, because their fixtures aren't particularly difficult. When you look at the run of fixtures that other clubs have, they've got Brentford coming up, they've got Swansea, and they've got Norwich. Yeah, I think they welcome Norwich to Pride Park. They're not like that's the three, and then the rest of them around that. You look at that and think like Stoke away, you can get someone from Stoke away. Is it Luton at home or Luton away? They've got Luton to play anyway. I think you can get someone out of that. So there are games that you look at and think, yeah, they can get some out of that. So yeah, I think they'll win another game. They'll win another game, and I think they'll be safe. But I think they'll be safe. I imagine Rooney would be angry. The amount of balls into the box and no effort. Uzviak has no grift at all. He falls over. Do you know what? I thought Camille was okay today. Now, okay is just that. It's just okay. It's not garbage. It's not, Ballon d'Or winning. It's just okay. He did some okay things. He actually tossed in 2 or 3 really good crosses, but no one was attacking them. And he actually linked up well with Nathan Byrne for a couple of good crosses, but no one was attacking him. But with that, yes, and he had a run where, there's no free. He had a really good run, but he doesn't get a free kick from it. But with that, he still had one where I think he gets into the box and he slides a really poor cut across back. Yeah, that's poor. Goes to ground a little too easily. That's the bad. Sometimes switches off defensively. That's the bad. But I think there is a section that has started to paint Uzviak as basically Florian Josefson 2.0, and I don't believe that to be the case because I actually think Uzviak was okay today. And like I said, sometimes okay, it's just okay. It's not a massive praise and it's not a massive, just fine. But yeah, when you're in the position, you kind of need your winger that you've signed and scouted for a year. Kind of need him to come good. And yeah, it's still not happening for him. I like Rooney's confidence, but he can't say it after losing to Millwall, for fuck's sake. Regan, I don't see why he can't. He said it when they were dead last in the league. He's not going to. I presume this is in relation to him saying that they will stay up. Absolutely, I presume that's what the comment's in relation to. If it is, then I don't see why he can't say it because he said it when they were rock bottom of the Championship. He's not going to change his tune now they're out of the relegation zone. Now, yeah, they're getting sucked back into that, but he's not going to change his tune. He said it when they were last. He said they wouldn't be there when they were last. He's hardly going to change his tune now. That's kind of what he's always done since getting the job. I'm worried again. Last few games we've nosedived completely. We're just chopping and changing all the time. Nothing is working. Can't create anything. Yeah, can't argue with that. Really, to be fair. It's been poor. Now, to be fair, the Barnsley game is a little bit of an outlier and he's a little bit of an asterisk to it because Rooney said they deliberately played the same way that Barnsley played to try and beat them at their own game. And you know what? Like Barnsley have just gone to Bournemouth and beaten them 3-2. Whether you think they're good or not, they're effective. They get results. With Route 1 football, they get results and they are where they are on merit. It's not luck. 30 plus games into the season, they're not 6 on luck. They're 6 because they deserve to be 6. It was a good point against Barnsley. So that one just needs a little bit of a caveat. But against Coventry, weren't good enough. Cardiff, absolutely trounced. Today, yeah, it's been poor. It's difficult. I have to agree where we play. Yeah, a couple of you that have mentioned Wycorn here, so Wycorn. He's not having a good season. He's not having a good time of it. Look, I don't like when I'm doing the minute by minute. I don't like to bury players. One of my biggest mistakes and biggest regrets really early on covering the club was I was very, very critical and very harsh of Tom Lawrence around Christmas time. And then he came back in the January and February and shut me up. And I was very thankful that he shut me up. He was excellent. And that was a lesson to be not so critical of everyone. I let you fans have those strong opinions. But for me, it's about, it isn't happening for Wycorn. It hasn't happened for Wycorn all season. And right now, yeah, it's difficult to say that he should be in the team, but with sort of without many wide options, Patrick Roberts is one that probably now will start, probably ahead of Uzviak because Uzviak was the guy that was brought off. But yeah, I think we're in the last 10 games of Martin Wycorn's career as a Derby County player right now. I don't think he'll be sticking around with a new contract. Can't wait for Sibley to leave for peanuts and go and light it up. Yeah, that's football, right? Sometimes that happens. But he's got himself a long-term deal right now, and I think talent-wise, he'd still command okay-ish fee. With Lawrence returning, is this a case for Wycombe being sat out? Yeah, I'd say so. I think it'd be really interesting if Rooney started Watson, Roberts, and Lawrence to just shuffle that deck a little bit. So he's just called out his entire attacking department. It wouldn't surprise me if, in sort of a doubling down on that, he shuffled the deck, put Lawrence out on the left, put Roberts on the right, put Watson in somewhere, and rolled with them that way. Yeah, even Kazim Richards was quiet today. Now Rooney caveated that a little bit with they didn't expect Colin to be busy today because they were going to have 3 centre backs around him, so they expected him to not get involved in build up too much, which he didn't. But to be sort of moving and mobile inside the box, which he didn't really do that. Yeah, he looks like he's trying. He looks a little bit knackered, to be honest with you. I mean, he's got through a lot of minutes recently. Yeah, he looks a little bit tired. But yeah, that doesn't excuse it. He was quiet. He was quiet today, and I don't think he didn't really have a chance. And recently, I'm struggling to think. If I'm misremembering, please drop it in the chat. But I'm struggling to think of a game over these last 5 games where Colin has been presented with a chance where he thought he's got to bury that. He's just got to bury it. No excuses. I can't think of any that come to hand right now. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Don't use the outlook today in previous weeks. Yeah, Jake. I thought today, weirdly, I thought was Uzviak's best day for crossing the ball. Generally, I thought he tossed in a few really nice ones, a couple of garbage ones as well. But right now, that's what we're getting out of it. Does Shinnie and Knight work in midfield without Christian? Charlie, this is an excellent question. It works on a functional level because Christian was the guy that unlocked a lot of things going forward. He was the guy that could spot the pass, could spot the run before he had. What Christian had was great anticipation. And while Shinnie and Knight try, and I think they do bits in that department, they're not like him. They're not like him. You know, that's the reason he was in there to do those things. You know, Shinnie and Knight are much more box to box now. You know, Shinnie can play a little bit, Knight can play a little bit, but I think the gap between their technical qualities and Christian's technical qualities is quite sizable. And without them, they are much more functional. You can throw Bird in there as well. I think Bird is more technically gifted, but I think his first instinct is to always go sideways out to the flank or something like that. So, yeah. Any takeover gossip? Joseph, no, there is not. Davencio have 2 days until the exclusivity agreement ends. It is going to end. I mean, if they weren't going to wrap the deal up in 4 months, I very much doubt they're going to wrap the deal up in 2 days. And now we just wait. Nothing officially can happen until that exclusivity agreement is over. So yeah, it's going to be quiet. Last couple. Rooney is setting up to stop the opposition instead of letting the opposition worry about us. I actually don't agree with that, Daniel. I don't agree with that today. Now, in last couple of games, yeah, fine, sure, I accept that. Today, I don't think that was the case at all. I think it was a case of they wanted 3 forwards to go along with the 5 defenders that Millwall would have. Otherwise, if you get a little bit outnumbered, I just don't think he expected Millwall to offer so little. Otherwise, you probably go to a back 4 and think, well, 4 can handle what they're going to throw at us. Because Derby dominated the game. It wasn't like they worried about Millwall. They dominated that game. They were just toothless. You know, today against Coventry, I thought they set up a little bit to stop Coventry. And against Barnsley, Rooney outright said that he stopped set up, in the same way Barnsley set up. But I don't think that was the case today, that they worried about the opposition too much. But generally across the 5 games, yeah, I take your point. Just not today. Yeah, Gregory, just a knock, Sam. Just a knock. Something in his knee, some fluid built up. He should be fine for Brentford. Do you think Uzviak is cut out for the pace of English football? Seems to dwell a little bit on the ball far too much. Yeah, I think he's cut out for the pace of it. He's got lots of pace, James. I think the problem he has is confidence. He dwells a lot on the ball. I think because his final ball isn't great right now. He's obviously trying to work on that. But I think right now his confidence in the sharper ends of the pitches where he has been bought to produce is just right now is just not where it needs to be. I think he's shown flashes that, yeah, he can keep up with the pace. He gets through a lot of work up and down that flank, gets through a lot of work, likes the rough and tumble, doesn't mind it, gets kicked up and down, doesn't mind it. But yeah, his final ball is bad. And listen, English football, Polish football, German football, Dutch football, any league on planet Earth you want, if your final ball is bad, your final ball's bad. That has nothing to do with what league you're playing. I think a lot of the tangible qualities, like his aggression, his willingness, the speed at which he does get up the pitch. I think when he gets on the outside on the right and gets up the line, I think that's fine. When it's the moment of truth, that's where he's not fine. And I don't think that has anything to do with the league he's in. I think that is solely down to him and his individual quality and his confidence. So yeah, look, guys, 25 minutes. We're out. Enjoy your Saturday night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll be back. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday for Brentford? Oh my God, they all roll into one. Home stretch now as well. What's that? Final 10 games we're in now. So look, it sucks. Before I go, we'll end on a positive. One positive before I go. Kazim Richards was captain today for the first time in his career, and he's 34 years old. That's just a positive. That's really cool. Yes, it sucked. Yes, he was quiet today, but we like to be positive here, and that was positive. So there we go. Look, all of you enjoy your weekend. I'm really sorry if I didn't get to you. I tried to get through as many as I can, but like you guys are all active in here now, and it's a lot of fun. But look, enjoy your weekend. Take care. Be safe out there. Love to you and yours. Take it easy, everybody.